downloaded the Buckeye Leafcast with your host, Andrew T. Evans, with special guest, Chris Stefanick.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the Buckeye Leafcast, brought to you by Christie's Cleaning Services, LLC. It's not clean until it's Christie clean. Also, Columbus Wired for your premier source for sports in the Central Ohio area. Check out columbuswired.net, and also brought to you by Choice Conversations. And joining me, who hosts that beautiful podcast on a weekly basis, the intergalactic Buckeye fan himself, Mr. Chris Stefanick.
Woo! Man, is football season started yet or what?
You know what? I think it's fully underway, sir. We had ourselves some interesting ones this last few days, including which actually turned out to be kind of a dud. Number 1 Alabama against number 3 Florida State. But we had some other interesting games. Maryland, our Big Ten family member, going down to take on the Fighting Tom Hermans, Chris, and pulled off the upset. Can you believe that? Unbelievable. Purdue gave Louisville a fight in their own house last night, and unfortunately did not come out victorious, but put up a darn good effort nonetheless. But of course, none of that really matters, Chris, because we're here to talk about the Buckeyes. Of course, this being the Buckeye Leafcast, our beloved Scarlet and Gray went over to Bloomington, Indiana to take on the Crimson and Cream of the Indiana Hoosiers on Thursday night and pulled out a win, 49-21, your final score, Chris. The Buckeyes ended up putting up some pretty darn good stats, but got off to a slow start. So, Chris, let's talk about that first. Your summation of Ohio State's performance. A lot of people here are talking about the slow start, and they looked rough, and they didn't look good, and JT Barrett, and blah, blah, blah. What's your take on this? I mean, they won the game. They covered the spread. They beat the over-under. Both of those aspects you said they would do. I did not have them covering the spread, which, once again, they did. The spread was, like 20 and a half, 21 points, something like that. They won by 4 touchdowns. What did you take away from the Buckeyes' 4-touchdown victory to start the season on the road against Indiana, a Big Ten team, something they have not done since 1975? And I thought it was a pretty damn good win. Yeah,
well, I mean, I think Buckeyes fans are just spoiled. I mean, if you would have said coming into the game, Ohio State's going to beat the spread, they're going to have 300 yards passing with 3 touchdowns, 300 yards rushing with 3 rushing touchdowns. You know, what's not to like? You know, that sounds pretty good to me. You know, they're going to hold the opponent to 17 yards rushing and get 5 sacks on the passing game. You know, they were going to commit no turnovers. I get it that, you know, you don't like to see Ohio State losing to Indiana in the third quarter, 21-20. You know, they did look sluggish in the first half. We can get into specifics. You know, the defense was getting lit up a little bit there for a while. But I mean, even with them getting, you know, quote unquote lit up, they still in the first half just gave up 14 points. And we can get into that lit up in a minute here. But just the overall, I'm just like, you know, in the past, I went through seasons. Like, I remember the 2015 season. 2015 season, I think they finished the year, 12-1, something like that. You know, it was, and won their bowl game handily, you know, beat the Meat Chickens. And I was freaking like miserable the whole year. Yeah, because it was just like they underperformed the whole freaking year, you know? And I was like, you know what? I'm never doing that again. This is entertainment. And if I'm not enjoying it, then what the hell am I doing? So I was finding a way to enjoy, even when Ohio State was losing in that first half, I was still having a good time watching it. I'm like, oh, this is really impressive. Some of the things that Indiana's doing. You know, I'm going to enjoy this as a football fan. Oh, this is a close game. This is enjoyable. You know, with that in mind, when I look at specifics, what went wrong? First of all, you got to understand that like Indiana, you know, has 85 scholarships too, right? And they're a pretty good team. And the whole reason we hired Kevin Wilson is because, you know, he had done a pretty good job there, right? If he had been doing a poor job, we wouldn't have hired him, and be so excited to have him as our offensive coordinator. So they're a pretty good team. Well, and then meanwhile, let's talk about, when Indiana had the ball. So, Ohio State's got quite possibly the best defensive line they've ever had. We'll wait to see what it looks like by the end of the year. But, coming in, there's like a lot of people saying this might be it. This is, at least like we've got probably 6 NFL defensive ends. 6.
Oh yeah.
So.
Oh yeah.
So and probably a couple first rounders in there. So this is a nasty defensive line. Well, Indiana, they come out and Legault, every pass he's dropping back, and the second he completes his drop back, he's whipping the ball out.
Releasing the ball.
Yeah,
very
the
fast
ball.
release.
Yeah, very fast release. So this is like, I'm watching this and I'm like, I don't care if they're playing the Seattle Seahawks. Nobody's getting to this guy if he's just going to drop back and immediately throw it.
Right.
And so there's that. And then I'm looking at the passes he's throwing, and the defensive backs are right there. And like very on very few occasions was the guy like pretty well open. Most of the time, the defensive backs are right there. And, you're seeing guys making one-handed grabs. You're seeing them making leaping grabs, and you're seeing them like dragging a toe as they're going out of bounds. And it's like so close that like on the field, he's called out of bounds and they have to review it. And then like, after seeing it 5 different angles, you're like, oh, wait a minute. I think maybe he did have a toe in. It's like that close. And I'm just sitting there looking at this like, diving plays, leaping plays, one-handed, dragging toes, dropping back. And I'm like, how long can they sustain this? I mean, this is really impressive what they're doing, but this is like they're playing out over their heads right now. And I don't know that they can do this for an entire game. At some point, he's going to drop back, and the guy, he's not going to have somebody to immediately throw to. And when he does, let's see how well that protection holds up. Sometimes he's going to drop back. The Ohio State defender is going to be right there like they've been all game. And the defensive player is going to make a play. Or Indiana's, receiver isn't going to be able to make a one-handed grab. He's not going to be able to get that toe in. Or Legault's not going to throw the perfect pass. He's going to miss on a couple of these. I'm like, it's just not sustainable. And sure enough, it wasn't sustainable. So there was that. And then, the other thing was the adjustments. I'm sitting there, I'm watching the first half, and one of the things that Indiana was doing to frustrate JT Barrett was on passing downs, they would send 3 and drop 8. And so JT's like, everybody's covered. They're showing the receivers downfield. Nobody's open. And when they started doing that, I said, Ohio State needs to do that to Indiana, because if they're just going to drop back and throw it instantly, you're not going to get there anyway. So I'm like, Jesus, just rush 2. I'm like, why even?
Right.
I don't know that you have one guy spy and drop 9, drop 10. I don't know.
Right.
But I mean, especially because Legault's not even a threat to run. So I'm like, I don't even know you need to spy. And that's what they did. And then when they did that and they started mixing up the looks and doing some cover 2s and some cover 3s, not leaving their cornerbacks on an island, dropping 8 and obvious passing downs, it worked. It took them, till halftime to make the adjustments. Now, you'd like to see the adjustments coming a little quicker than that, because I was calling for that in the second quarter, but they came. I'm not going to complain too much. Ohio State, like I said, they covered the spread, super balanced attack, 300 rushing, 300 passing, 3 touchdowns through the air, 3 touchdowns on the ground, no turnovers. That's a hell of a game.
Yep.
So
I agree.
Yes. What was your take on all that?
Well, I think the one thing that Buckeye fans truly were expecting, and this was something I honestly was not expecting, and that was that Kevin Wilson was just going to come in here, and because of the offenses that he ran in the past, Northwestern back in the late 90s and early 2000s, and then down at Oklahoma when he led Jason friggin' White, of all people, to a Heisman Trophy in 2003. I mean, Jason White is one of those Heisman winners that you forget. And you're like, wait, who won it? Jason White. Who did he play for? Oh, Oklahoma, really? I don't even remember him. So, I mean, that shows you the ability of Kevin Wilson to get the most out of his players. But to have expected him to just come in, wave this magic wand, he's Kevin Wilson, he's this brainiac offensive coordinator. Boy, Ohio State, man, God, they got fifth-year senior J.T. Barrett. They got Mike Weber back. They got these stud freshmen who J.K. Dobbins, we'll talk about him in a second, but holy crap, did he not make a name for himself now or what? But, I mean, we were certainly not expecting that out of J.K. Dobbins. We figured he'd get in the game, but for him to do what he did was unbelievable. And like I said, we'll talk about that in a second. But I really think that people's expectations were just a little too high for an offensive coordinator who's, been with the team, a couple of months, to just come in and automatically these guys are going to just go out there and go bonkers and put up all these amazing stats. And yes, did they look rusty? Did I even get a little frustrated after, the second drive there that Indiana scored and it was 14-6 and Ohio State was looking very rough on offense, very rough on defense. I'll admit I started getting a little frustrated too, but to your point, I tried to kind of take a step back, take a deep breath and go, hey, it's all about strength, conditioning, talent. Ohio State has that in spades over Indiana. They're going to eventually win this game. But it was still a little frustrating to kind of watch them go through these sluggish, rusty woes, if you will, throughout the first quarter and even into kind of the third quarter there. But, ultimately, at the end of the day, like you said, let's look at the final stats. J.T. Barrett, 304 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns. He had 61 yards on the ground with another rushing touchdown. J.K. Dobbins ends up with 181 yards rushing. Best ever debut true freshman performance ever in Ohio State history. Unfortunately, he didn't get in the end zone for whatever reason. They decided to let Antonio Williams, the third string running back, carry 2 touchdowns into the end zone. He ended up with 7 totes for 44 yards. But nonetheless, at the end of the day, you look at those offensive stats, and I'm happy. I'm happy with that. I'm happy with what J.T. Barrett did. And like you said, no turnovers. No turnovers, dude. And the fact that a true freshman comes out 181 yards, 29 carries. And I had not seen a performance like that since the guy's record he beat in Maurice Claret back in 2002. And let's talk about that, Chris. Do we have an issue at running back, and a good issue at that? But has Dobbins now surpassed Weber? Should Dobbins get the start against Oklahoma, even if Weber's healthy? Are we going to see a split in carries between these two? Is Antonio Williams even going to see the field again if Weber's healthy? I mean, your take on Dobbins' performance, and then what do you think moving forward here as far as what's going on in the backfield?
Well, a star is born, Quarterback is typically like the star position at most schools. That's the prima donna position, but like the premier position is running back at Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, did he look good. And I'm telling you, he looked much better to me than Weber looked last year. Now, maybe Weber's made strides.
Oh, yeah.
Weber didn't look nearly as fast as JK did, but if you look at like their 40 times, which we were talking about, in last week's podcast, Weber was 4.32 and JK was 4.30 or something like that. I think they were like 0.02 of a second apart. And so really, and both were faster than like wide receivers and cornerbacks and, really fast. And I'm like, okay, well, if Weber's really that fast, because he didn't look that fast last year, maybe this is a new guy this year. Maybe he was playing a little banged. Of course, he's banged this year too. So I
was going to say, he's still banged up.
But he was banged up when he ran that 40 time. So I don't know. We'll see. But I'm like, Weber he looks better than me. He's got the complete package. Weber his style is that of a power back. But when do you see Weber breaking tackles? He almost never did. JK is supposed to be the scat back. But I swear to God, he ran through arm tackles left and right in that game. I felt like he broke more tackles just, as a power back in that one game than we saw Weber do all last year. Maybe that's just a little selective memory on my part, but at any rate, he looked like he was better at being a power back than Weber is. Plus, he's also faster. He's got the, what does he not have? He's got shiftiness, vision. I saw a couple spin moves in there. I saw some stiff arms. Yeah. That jump stop was awesome. It's like he's got the whole package.
Yep.
And they gave it to him just over and over and over again, and it's like every time he was getting good yardage. I mean, he averaged 6 yards a carry. That was one of the things in the first half. I was with Lee Corso. Lee Corso was like, why is Woody Hayes is spinning in his grave right now? Why they're not giving the ball to J.K. every time they give it to him? He looks good, but they keep trying to pass and it's not working. It's like I was saying the same thing. I'm like, their passing game isn't working. The run is. Let's do that until they stop it. And you saw more runs in the second half, and that loosened up the passing game some. So it's a good problem to have. I mean, if you listen to Meyer, Meyer said this. They asked who's the starter for next week, and he said J.K. Weber. So
Mike Dobbins.
Yeah. So I mean, it's good to have two, because I don't know that I'd want to give J.K. the ball that many times all year long. I mean, hopefully Ohio State's going to be playing 15 games this year. If Weber is even just as good as he was last year, that's still good enough to give J.K. a breather and, spell him, and so he doesn't have to bear that full load. But who's the better back? It sure looks to me like J.K. is, and I don't know that I would do an even split unless Weber's really made strides from last year. If it's the Weber that we saw last year, then I would, it would be more like 2/3 of the carry to J.K., 1/3 to Weber. Something like that.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I think that Mike Weber, just going off of the eye test, what we saw last year, and, we talked about it in last week's show, we're talking about a kid who's only the third freshman ever in Ohio State history run for over 1,000 yards. That's saying something. But just going off of the eye test, from what I saw from Weber last year and what I saw from Dobbins on Thursday night, now I know why the coaching staff it was so high on this Dobbins kid and saying what they were saying. Sometimes you hear the coaches, oh, yeah, this kid, that kid, why they're really, blah, 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 this and that, and they really talk him up, and then you see him and you're like, okay, was that just a bunch of fluff just to kind of pump up the kid a little bit, give him a little more confidence, or is that really he's not playing the way in the game that, he had been performing in practice? J.K. Dobbins was exactly what the coaches were saying. I mean, he is all that in a bag of chips. Now, can he do something like that against Oklahoma? Is he going to be able to do something like that against stiffer run defenses? A Michigan defense, a Penn State defense? Boy, that's going to be a tough, order for him to replicate. But he, still, this was a Big Ten team. Now, not the greatest run defense of teams in the Big Ten, and we talked about that last week too. That Indiana's rush defense has never typically been all that strong. So, maybe we take this performance with a grain of salt. Nonetheless, still rushing for 181 yards and never having seen the field in a year. I mean, and that's something else that he didn't play his senior year in high school. He was hurt all year long. And so for a kid to come in like that and do it on the road against a Big Ten team after he hadn't played in a year, let's maybe, take a little salt off of that, off of his game and give credit where credit is due, because that was just an unbelievable performance. But I got to say right now at this point, I'm with you. I think Dobbins is your man for the most part. Give him about 2/3 of the carries. Bring Weber in to kind of spell Dobbins. But I think right now J.K. Dobbins has won the job. I really do. And I'm not trying to take anything away from Mike Weber, but I guess I am in saying that I think a true freshman passes up a third-year sophomore and has won the starting job, and especially if Weber's going to continue to be nicked up. So let me tell you what, if Mike Weber, if his 40 time was clocked at faster than these guys, then they need to go to a different way of clocking dudes, because Johnny Dixon looked fast. And it was great to see Johnny Dixon. Man, weren't you so happy to see that for Johnny Dixon, especially after he comes out, first pass thrown his way, and just bonks right off his hands. You know, he just took his eyes off the ball and started running before he caught it. But for him to turn around and do what he did on that touchdown catch, it was just great to see, especially after that video that we had talked about where, they call all of the parents of the players and say, hey, we just want to let you know your kid is starting. And Johnny Dixon's mom, that was one of the best I've heard in a while. Boy, she was freaking out and going nuts and was so happy. And just for Johnny Dixon in general, I mean, here's a kid, he's a fourth-year junior. He's, pretty highly touted and recruited and rated kid out of high school down in Florida. And, he's just been battling, just nicks and injuries and here and there, and his knees and his ankles and all that kind of stuff. And finally seems like he's healthy and he gets rewarded with a start. And you thought, oh boy, after he dropped that pass, oh boy, hopefully that wasn't I don't want to say a mistake starting him, but in a way, hopefully this wasn't a mistake. But he made up for it, and I was happy to see that.
It was great. I mean, I'm a sentimental guy, and when they showed that video of his mom, and his mom's like running around the parking lot,
Yeah.
I got a little tear in my eye.
Great.
Yeah, I got to listen to that. And then when he got that touchdown pass and went in the end zone and took a knee, said a little prayer, I got a little tear in my eye in there as well. It's just such a good story. After a poor guy has, arthritis in both of his knees and is contemplating giving up football and all of that. So that was really cool. But to your point, though, you're right. All of those, even the big plays they were big because there was a nice run after the catch. Nothing deep. They tried going deep like 3 or 4 times and were never able to complete it. Some of them, nobody was there. Others, he hits Paris in the hands and he drops it. But I mean, it was just that was very reminiscent of last year. They could never complete anything downfield. To your point, like when the defense stiffens, teams are going to just challenge the Buckeyes to throw it deep. The book is kind of out on Ohio State right now. That's what I was thinking in the first half of that game. Mm-hmm. I'm like, man, the book is out. It's like you don't worry about anything downfield. You cloud the line of scrimmage and and in that intermediate area, and if they don't even worry about anything downfield, and that makes it a heck of a lot easier to defend when you don't have to defend the whole field. So they're gonna need to do something about that. You had asked, is J.K. Dobbins, as amazing as his performance is he going to be able to replicate that versus stiffer defenses? And one thing I will say, Mike Weber last year averaged 6 yards a carry for the whole season. If Mike Weber can average 6 yards a carry, and we're saying this guy looks that much better than Mike Weber, then I think, there's no reason to think J.K. can't, even, versus stiffer competition. But you're right, though. Like that, the embarrassment in the playoffs versus Clemson, they're going to have to get teams to respect the deep ball, or it's just not going to work. I mean, that's why Ohio State was such a juggernaut those last 3 games of the season back in 2014. First of all, 12 gauge in there throwing the ball, who was a master at throwing the deep ball. And then they had Devin Smith, like the best deep ball catching wide receiver in OSU history. I think like if you look at the number of 40-yard touchdowns he's caught, he's number 1 on the list, and I don't think it's even close to like who's number 2. And he was just a master of winning those 50-50 balls. He could be even covered. You just throw it up and he would beat his defender, So they had that to loosen the defense up, and then so the defense couldn't crowd the line of scrimmage, and then you hand it off to Zeke, and Zeke just went crazy. And it was like, what are you going to do? You give him Devin Smith 50-yard bombs or let Zeke rush for 300 yards. It's like they, defenses were just scratching their heads, and even as stout of a defense as Alabama has, we're just at a loss how to stop it. So, I mean, if they could ever figure out at least to put something respectable out there, I don't expect, Paris Campbell to transform into Devin Smith overnight, but when JT hits you in the hands, you need to catch that ball. I mean, at least 90% of the time. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I was just glad to see that they didn't hang their heads, and the coaches did make some adjustments. They changed up they weren't able to complete the deep ball, but they did change up some of the routes the receivers were running, and they ran the ball more in the second half. And I think that running the ball more loosened things up for the pass.
Yeah, and I think, once again, just going back to strength and conditioning and overall talent, that's really for obviously a half and for, good chunk of the third quarter. I mean, with about 4 or 5 minutes left to go in the third quarter, Indiana took that lead back 21-20, and, Ohio State had offensively woken up, right there near the end of the first half. When they finally scored that touchdown, you could tell, okay, Urban lit a fire under their ass, and now they're moving the football, and they come out in the second half there, and they score, they take the lead, and then they almost took the lead even bigger, but a weird, questionable fumble returned for 6. Our boy BB Landers taking it to the house, and then they ruled that it was, Tom Brady a la 2001 tuck rule playoff crap, that his arm was coming forward. But when you look at the replay, I mean, it was extremely close. And in that regard, I would say if it's extremely close, you give it to the call on the field. Instead, they went the other way with it, and they took the touchdown back, said his arm was coming forward, and Indiana took the ball right down the field and scored and took the lead there. But after that, I mean, that was it. Indiana was done. And then we got into the fourth quarter, and Ohio State's strength and conditioning and overall talent took over. And I think that was ultimately what won them the game, because at that point, Indiana, I think they were pretty much gassed going into the fourth quarter, and, Ohio State's just talent and strength and conditioning took over. But what about the defense, though, Chris? So let's talk about that a little bit. Like you said, 5 sacks in this game. They've got a defensive line that we know at this point is the backbone of the defense. I mean, like you said, 6 legitimate defensive ends are 6 defensive linemen are NFL worthy that are on this squad. And I mean, no lie, Chris. I think they've got easily right now, in any game they play, including this coming Saturday against Oklahoma, they can put in up to 10 or maybe even 12 different guys to put in on that defensive line. That's how deep they are. I mean, Chris, our boy Jay-Sean Cornell. Are you serious? Jay-Sean Cornell. He got in and he got 2 tackles in the game, 1 sack, caused a fumble, and then our other boy, Jonathan Cooper from Gahanna Lincoln High School, makes the recovery. And, I mean, we're talking about guys that are legitimately considered, third stringers?
Third string.
And they're getting in the game. They're getting in the game, Chris, when things were still kind of, I mean, Ohio State had a fairly good lead at that point, but they're putting these guys in when, Ohio State, I think, was up, maybe 35-21 at that point, I think was the score. But, I mean, still 2 touchdowns, the way Indiana's been throwing the ball, it wasn't like it was totally in the bag. And here we got these, third string guys coming in and making plays. I mean, just unbelievable. But really where, the bane, if you will, of the evening was definitely the fact that they allowed Richard Lago to throw for 285 yards in the first half, which was the most yards that Ohio State has allowed passing in it's a long time. I can't remember the exact stat, but it had been quite a while since Ohio State had allowed that many yards in the first half. So yeah, give me your summation here defensively, as far as defensive line, linebackers, cornerbacks, secondary, the whole 9.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, first of all, the depth on the defensive line can't be understated. I mean, you talked about the guys getting in there while the game was still in doubt. Jonathan Cooper was in there in the first quarter. I made note of that.
And so Cornell was too.
And Chase Young was in there in the second quarter. Those are 2. That's the third string defensive ends. So they were rotating those guys in. They're playing 6 defensive ends all game long. And then you're right. Yeah, they're playing at least 4, if not 5 or 6. I think they're playing basically 5 defensive tackles right now. And the starter, Michael Hill, isn't even back yet. So there's that. So I mean, they're going to be so fresh on that side. And then also on the other side, they were playing 3 cornerbacks the whole game as well, rotating, Ward, Sheffield, and Arnett. So they're, that's going to just help them to be fresh, and other teams aren't going to be able to do that. So that, at least not until you get a lot, maybe you get in the playoffs, teams will be able to do that. But, it's great. It's great all around, and it keeps guys experienced. When players leave, you have other guys to step in that aren't green. So I'm all for it. If guys get injured, you're not worried about the next guy coming in because he's been playing all year long. So really good. Defensive line is just basically no worries. 17 yards rushing on 27 attempts. It's 0.6 yards per carry and no scores. They just, what they did on the running game was incredible, and also it was one of those things where, because Indiana was passing a lot. They did still have 27 attempts rushing, but they were passing a lot. It was like 60 attempts passing. So you'd think at some point, like later in the game, like Ohio State defense might kind of fall asleep on the run and let them, get some big ones. It's like, no, it didn't matter the entire game long. Anytime Indiana would just to try to catch Ohio State off guard would do a run, I'd be like, nope, stuffed in the backfield. It was just incredible. They just never lost that focus. So yeah, defensive line looking great. I thought the linebackers were acceptable. They didn't have an amazing game.
Yeah, they didn't. But didn't really jump out at you. Weren't real gaudy as far as stats. Worley, I thought had a good game. He ended up like 6 tackles, had 1 for loss. But otherwise, Dante Booker and Jerome Baker, I think he had like 3 tackles, a couple of pass breakups, almost had a pick. But he and Denzel Ward probably would have been a pick 6, and he just kind of bumped into him, and they bumped into each other, and no pick at all. But anyways, the linebackers.
You can't complain too much. They did get. I would say this: the run support game. The linebackers were great. Passing, they did get lost in coverage a little bit. That one tight end was got open a few times, and that was a lot of times it was Baker that was covering him, and he did get open. So there's that. They have to but if that's like your biggest weakness on your defense is the linebackers are not always able to cover dynamic playmaking tight ends, then it's not too bad. You can game plan around that a little bit, right? And then I thought the defensive backs. I know they got lit up, especially on the box score, but I felt like they were there the whole game. They were there with them. Can they be better? Sure. There was times when they were right there and they were kind of face guarding, and so the Indiana player was able to still make the catch. Was able to turn around and go up and get it. Where if Denzel Ward just turns around, he can knock the ball away or maybe even get a pick. So those are things you can work on, and hopefully they'll get better. The only returning starter is Damon Webb out of that secondary. So, for their first game out, they're usually playing cupcakes. Last year I think they beat Bowling Green 70-something to 13 or whatever it was. They just ran them out of the building. They usually have some warm-up games.
7-10.
In this game they're coming out playing. The passing attack Indiana has is probably just probably as good as Oklahoma, maybe just a little bit less. Baker Mayfield's amazing, so maybe not quite as good. The thing that Oklahoma has that Indiana doesn't have is, Ohio State's not going to hold Oklahoma to 17 yards rushing, so
no,
there'll be a little bit more of a balance there, but which is going to open things up for Mayfield, right? That Legault didn't have, but I thought the defensive backs were fine,
Herb Street said during the broadcast, I'm sure you heard it, he said that this passing attack is the best that Ohio State is going to see all year, including Oklahoma. And I thought that was a pretty heavy statement to make. Baker Mayfield, what he just did against UTEP, he didn't even play in the second half. He was like 19 to 20, and he threw for like 200 and something yards and 3 touchdowns, and that was in one half of play. Now, of course, we're talking about UTEP. Ohio State going to be very different from UTEP. Even the way that they played defensively against Indiana, trust me, Ohio State's secondary is much better than UTEP. But, the way that they did kind of come out and get torched a little bit there, it kind of makes you maybe stand back and kind of wonder, hey, is Baker Mayfield going to be able to come in and do something like that to this defense come this Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to see some points because I don't know that Oklahoma's defense is as good as Indiana's. I think it's probably not, to be honest with you. Oklahoma was just, they were a freaking sieve last year. And it was one of the things that we got a little excited. We overreacted a little bit last year after Ohio State did what they did to Oklahoma, thinking, oh man, look how good we are. I mean, Ohio State struggled, their offense struggled to look as good as they did versus Oklahoma the rest of the year. And meanwhile, we're watching like team after team after team in the Big 12 scoring just as many points as Ohio State did or more. And it's like, oh, I guess it wasn't so much that Ohio State was all that great. It was just that Oklahoma is awful on defense. It's just nobody plays defense in that conference. They still won the conference with an awful defense. It's just nobody plays defense in that conference. So,
right.
Let's talk about this Oklahoma game a little bit. So,
absolutely.
I've got it at 49-35 because my thinking is Indiana, is better than Oklahoma on defense. And if Ohio State can score 49 on the road versus Indiana, then they can score 49 at home versus Oklahoma. So I got 49 for the good guys. But likewise, I think Oklahoma's got a better offense than Indiana. So, the passing game is pretty much equal, maybe a little bit better. Baker Mayfield is legit, and he's got some good, they're replacing some guys, that P. Ryan and different guys. They got some different playmakers they got to replace. But the most important one, Baker Mayfield, is back. And then they're going to be able to be a little bit more balanced. That Lincoln Riley is going to have that offense clicking on all cylinders, and they're not going to hold them to 17 yards rushing. So,
no,
I'm thinking, Indiana got 21 with Lincoln Riley's offense, Baker Mayfield, Heisman candidate. I'm looking at 49-35, and the spread is 8, by the way. Ohio State.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Chris. You're saying a 2-touchdown win. Granted, it is at home. It's with a Bob Stoopsless team. Granted, Lincoln Riley, came out and led them to a huge win in his Oklahoma head coaching debut.
The UTEP game means nothing, though. I mean, the 56-7, that means nothing. It means as much as Ohio State's 70-13 victory over Bowling Green last year. That didn't do us a whole lot of good versus Clemson.
Well, at the end of the year, it definitely did not do a lot of good.
The UTEP victory isn't going to do them any good versus Ohio State. I mean, I guess you could knock the rust off a little bit, but that was another thing too.
Well, it's a good way to knock the rust off.
Ohio State is much more tested than Oklahoma coming into this, so they had to look at at a third quarter deficit. They had to look at hey, we just gave up some big plays. You can't hang our heads. Got to come back and cover the guy on the next pass. Hey, we just dropped the touchdown pass. Even when our team is down, we can't hang our heads. We got to come back out there and make a play on the next play. So, I mean, they've been through that. They've where Oklahoma hasn't. So, as much as I don't like having big game. Well, I mean, I like it and I don't like it. It's a mixed bag. We talked about this last week. There's pros and cons to having the big games early, but in general, you're more likely to get upset in week 1 than you are in week 2 or 3, right? So I'd rather have that easy game to get you warmed up, and then the better team usually wins. And since Ohio State's typically the better team all season long until playoff time, till postseason, I'd rather have the cupcakes early to get them through any to allow them to develop rhythm and all of that. But at the same time, when you're going up against Oklahoma, it is nice to be battle tested, and they are, where Oklahoma's not.
And that's a fair point. Absolutely. Oklahoma warming up against UTEP is probably not going to get them as prepared as Ohio State facing what will probably, I see Indiana ending up probably much like they have the last couple of seasons as like a 6-6, maybe even a 7-5 team. So to warm up with them, as opposed to a Bowling Green definitely is. I think you're right. I think it's going to definitely help Ohio State in this football game. However, how does Oklahoma respond in a big game without their head coach whom they've had, the last 16, 17 years? Is that even a factor? It wasn't a factor against UTEP, but yes, to your point, that was UTEP. It was at home. Let's not even count that as a game almost. This is just a whole new bag, taking on Ohio State on the road, second game of the year. And the one thing though that I look at Oklahoma, and yeah, their defense not too great last season, but when you look at their depth chart, they've got a lot of experience coming back that they had last year. Now, does that mean anything? Usually you can chalk up some experience, you got juniors, fourth-year juniors, seniors, and fifth-year seniors on your team. I like to think that experience sometimes can trump talent. Just because you've been there, you're seasoned, the playbook, the where to be on the field, the positioning, all that kind of stuff. And their depth chart, man. I mean, they've got 4 fifth-year seniors, 4th-year seniors, and a couple of sophomores and a true freshman, believe it or not. But defense, they're bringing back some experience. And Urban Meyer will tell you, revenge, that's not on our mind for this game. We just go out and we just, do our thing and follow our assignments, and revenge isn't trust me, dude, teams have that kind of stuff circled on the calendar. And you better damn well believe that Oklahoma's going to be fired up coming in to the Horseshoe, and they want to avenge that loss that they suffered by 3 touchdowns on their own field last year to us. They want to come in and do the same thing. However, who's got the more talent? You just said Baker Mayfield. We're going to have 2 fifth-year senior quarterbacks taking each other on. And Baker Mayfield, he's a Heisman candidate, much like JT. I think we could see a shootout as well. And I'm a little bit of a glass is half empty kind of guy when it comes to making predictions on Ohio State scores and stuff. Sometimes it pans out, sometimes it doesn't. But I don't see Ohio State even winning by 2 touchdowns, 8 points even. Boy, I'll tell you, I think this could be a touchdown game, Chris. I think it might even come down to, a field goal. At most, I think Ohio State is going to win this game by 10 points. But I'm going to go even a little more conservative than that. I'm going to go 1 point below the spread at this point on Sunday afternoon, 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on the dot, and say that Ohio State wins this game 33-26. I'm going to get weird on a stupid score. No, I'm going to go 34-27. I'll get a little more. I won't get that weird, but I'm going to go 34-27.
Like, are we looking at multiple safeties here? What do we?
Yeah, field goals. Yeah, maybe a couple of safeties. Maybe some 2-point conversions or something. No, 34-27. I don't think that the scoring will get as out of hand, and I don't want to say out of hand, but be as prolific as maybe you're thinking it might be. But I do think that the defenses are going to tighten up a little bit. But between a number 2 and a number 7, I think that's still a lot of points. So we'll see. But once again, I think Oklahoma's out for blood. I think they're out for revenge, and I think this is going to be a damn good football game. I really do, dude.
Oh, I can't wait. Yeah, and you're right. The revenge factor is something I hadn't really been putting a lot of stock in, but we're going to get Oklahoma's best shot. If they're definitely going to have a little more juice to win this than Ohio State, you would think. It's just that Ohio State won handily last year, so and somewhere in the back of their minds, they're like, yeah, we've got Oklahoma's number. We got this. Where like Oklahoma's like, we've got something to prove. So that's significant. Now, on the other hand, Ohio State did have 2 extra days to rest and prepare. It was almost like a bye week coming in, and that is pretty significant a lot of times. So
very true.
I really like that 2 extra days. I like I was telling you last week, I love opening the season on a Thursday. Either, if you didn't have to play the week before, Thursday night games are great. So if you're coming off a bye week and your first game back after a bye week is a Thursday night game, hell yeah. If you're coming out off the preseason and preseason, if you're coming out of summer camp or whatever, and your first game of the year is a Thursday night game, that's awesome. I'll take that anytime.
Yeah.
As long as it's not like you played Saturday and now you got to turn around and play on Thursday. That's not cool.
Thursday, yeah. No.
But yeah.
Now that's that's a great point on that too. And yes, we did talk a little bit about that. That is going to bode well for Ohio State. Absolutely, the fact that they get an extra couple of days to recover from Indiana, and that could very well play into their hands, if you will. That they're going to be just smidge fresher than Oklahoma. Granted, Oklahoma, they probably didn't have to exert too much energy in beating the crap out of UTEP, but nonetheless, it was, it's still a football game. Like you say, hey, they've got scholarship players too. So, getting out there and, cracking some helmets against UTEP, I'm sure, took at least a little bit out of them.
Yeah, I mean, you're still taking hits, even if you're not having to play a full game from start to finish because, it's the backups in there at the end. You're still taking hits and your body's sore and all of that. So, it's a factor. And the preparing time, I think, is definitely an extra factor. That means something important.
Speaking of backups getting in, to kind of go back real quick on the Indiana game, were you kind of surprised that Ohio State up 42-21 and there's about 6 minutes or so left in the game, they kept JT in and they didn't bring in Haskins? I mean, I thought that was like a perfect, ample opportunity to get your redshirt freshman backup, who could have to come in at any point. I mean, you never know, to get in there and get some reps, especially in a game like that. On the road, Big Ten game, you're up 3 touchdowns. Why are you keeping JT out on the field?
Yeah, I mean, I see it like the pros and cons of it. So, the con is you're not getting Haskins, any experience. You're also putting JT in danger of getting an injury. The pro is the game was not entirely out of reach at that point. Indiana does have a dynamic attack, and there was enough time. Like, stranger things have happened, right? So Indiana could have come back and won that game. Unlikely, but if Haskins in there and throws a pick six, and then they at that point they're kicking on sides or something like that, right? So
I know.
So there's that.
Guess.
And the other thing is if you got Oklahoma next week, the offense only really looked like it was clicking that well in the second half. Maybe they just want to get some more reps for these starters out there as well. So,
that's really, I guess, that was the one thing that came to mind for me, was like, well, okay, they've got Oklahoma, and I think they were even talking about that on the broadcast, Herbie and the guy he did the game with, and that was the one point that Kirk brought up, is like, well, I guess maybe at this point they just feel like they need to get as many reps as possible. Or one of the two said it, one of the two guys. One guy asked and the other guy answered. I can't remember which was which, but at any rate, I guess that's it, is that they really wanted to get JT as much, the game experience, if you will, as possible, coming into Oklahoma. I don't know. I just thought, hey, why risk an injury? Get him off the field and get Haskins some time. Get him some experience, because I think that at some point, you never know. We may need it. We may not. Hopefully JT stays healthy. But nonetheless, you just never know when something weird might happen. And I thought that was a good chance for him to get in and get some playing time. But on the other side of it, I obviously understand that. You got a huge game coming up this weekend, so why not have your starter get as much game time experience as possible before heading into a huge game like this. So,
Right. Well, before we close it out, there's one thing we would be remiss if we did not mention, and that is that Barrett is now within 2 touchdowns of Drew Brees' career Big Ten TD record. So it's, TD is accounted for at 106.
Well, he's now the all-time yards leader at Ohio State.
Yep.
He passed up Art Schlichter in that game.
Yep. So now up to 9,211 yards for his career. So he's gonna, he's gonna be well over 10,000. Definitely gonna be a 5-figure fella here real soon. So,
oh my goodness,
he
the only 5-figure yardage gainer in Ohio State history.
And I think he's probably going to hold that a long time because, first of all, how often you see 4-year starters? Most of the time you don't start. And if you are in there as freshmen, with the way the team is right now, you're probably looking to go pro after your junior year. So,
exactly.
You're just not going to see 4-year guys starting almost. And that's pretty much what it's going to take. I mean, if he stays healthy this year, the whole season through, you're going to need 4 years to pass him up. So, he's going to hold. He might hold that one until we might be talking about JT Barrett holding that record. When we're on our deathbed. So it's pretty impressive stuff.
Extremely impressive, yeah. And once again, people want to talk about JT and looking at Facebook and getting text messages from people and talking to just people outside in the real world. I want to see Tate Martell. Put him in the game. Where's Martell at? I'm just shaking my head, and I'm like, folks, ease up, okay? You want a true freshman to come in just because he was the Gatorade High School National Player, Offensive Player of the Year. Now all of a sudden you think that he needs to come in and start over a fifth-year senior. Are you out of your friggin' mind? I mean, no offense. I'm sure Tate Martell's good, and let's hope we see him at some point. But, folks, he also has another guy ahead of him that is very, very good too. And I would rather see Haskins come in before we see Tate Martell. I want to see Tate Martell at some point, but not because we think that JT Barrett is not playing well. And so let's just bring in the true freshman who's, highly touted, highly rated. Once again, Gatorade National Offensive Player of the Year. But, give me a break, folks. Let's not get crazy with this. And it cracks me up when fans say that kind of stuff. It's like they just forget that there's other guys on the team who have more experience, who can come in, pretty highly rated and highly recruited as well. But let's bring in the freshman. Let's see Tate Martell. He's better than JT Barrett. It's like, how do you know? Right. JT Barrett just became the all-time friggin' yards leader at Ohio State and is, like you said, within 2 touchdowns of breaking Drew Brees' record. So, folks, just take a step back and don't be so stupid at times.
Right. Well, and the other thing, too, is if you want to see somebody besides JT, the thing that's nice about Haskins is he's got a cannon. He's got the best arm on the I mentioned earlier how amazing the offense looked with Cardale back in there in that magical 3-game run in 2014.
Yep.
You got a guy there who can hit those deep balls, and hit it over the shoulder, beautiful passes. That's got me a little bit excited. I mean, I'm not saying, bench JT and go with Haskins. I mean, JT's starting for a reason. He's also, by the way, the only player ever in Ohio State football history to be a 3rd-time captain. So there's that as well.
Yes.
But I'm not saying to bench him, but I am a little excited to see what Haskins can do with this offense. Haskins and JK next year might be, reminiscent of, Zeke and Cardale, that magic we had with that magical combination. If we could just find somebody to step up and be the next Devin Smith, look out. So,
Yep.
But yeah. I mean, Tate Martell is going to redshirt this year unless we have another quarterback get injured. Joe Burrow's out. If we have either JT or Haskins goes down, then I think you're going to see the red shirt come off. But otherwise, they really don't want to burn his red shirt. It'd be silly to do it. Why waste a year when, the other guy should be able to handle the job, right? And by the way, I said we're not going to see somebody else get 4-year starter. Tate Martell's the kind of guy who might actually be able to do it. If he can somehow beat out Burrow and Haskins next year. Because he's so short that I don't think he would leave early. I don't think he projected. I don't think he's an NFL quarterback. He's like, what, 5'11"?
No way. He's listed at 5'11".
Yeah,
Let me tell you what. I've seen him in person. He ain't no 5'11".
Right.
He ain't no 5'11".
So maybe JT, that's the one guy. If he can come on and actually win the job next year, and I'm not saying he will. I don't think he will. I think he'll be third string next year too. But if he could, that's a guy who I'm like, I don't see him leaving early because I just don't see him having an NFL career. He's not gonna get drafted. So why leave early? So,
yep, I agree. I think that Tate Martell, in fact, if anything, I think Tate Martell will be lucky to start 1 year if he doesn't transfer first. That's my projection on Tate Martell. And the one listener we have in Urban Meyer on this show is probably freaking out that I just said that right now. But I'm sorry, Coach. I could see Tate Martell honestly transferring because, to your point, Chris, I'm sorry. He's no NFL quarterback. There is no way at listed 5'11", which he is not. I'd put him more at about 5'8", maybe 5'9" tops. That he's going to the NFL. Now, he might add another position because he's extremely athletic, he's fast, he's quick, he's got some moves, but I just don't see it not at quarterback. Now, I know Ohio State likes that read option style, shifty quarterback, can run the ball, and who can throw it. We haven't really seen Tate Martell a whole lot, throwing the ball. I'm not saying he can't, but, Dwayne Haskins, very reminiscent of Cardale Jones, dude. I mean, tall, dude. When this dude, he's listed at what, 6'4", 6'5", and I can tell you that's legitimate. Dwayne Haskins is a tall kid because I've seen him in person too, and he is tall, and we've seen him throw the football. Granted, it was only in the spring game, but still looked very, very good throwing the ball. And if anything, I think Dwayne Haskins or Joe Burrow, if he can come back from this broken hand, one of those two are going to be your starter next year, and probably Haskins at this rate just by maybe default, because he's probably going to get some playing experience this year that obviously Burrow's not going to get. So I don't know, Chris. Yeah, I want to see Tate Martell and what he can do, but man, I don't know. There's too much ahead of him, and we got a kid named Emory Jones coming in now next season that's very highly touted and rated. Boy, Tate Martell, I think personally has a steep hill to climb when it comes to being the starting quarterback at Ohio State.
I hear you, man. Yeah, he's yeah. I mean, he could do it, but I don't think it's definitely not gonna be this year, and no, probably not gonna be next year. He's gonna have to wait his turn.
I do too. If he sticks around, I mean, quite honestly, you're right. If he does get that shot, I think it's going to be maybe 1 year, unless Dwayne Haskins. I mean, he's a redshirt freshman this year. Haskins comes out, starts next year, and just blows up, and all the pro draft pundits are Dwayne Haskins, #1 pick in the draft, and then hey, if he scoots out after 1 year as a redshirt sophomore, which he's able to do, then maybe Tate Martell comes in and starts for 2 or 3 seasons, but otherwise, if Haskins sticks around for at least another 2 seasons or so, Martell just might only get 1 year at best. But nonetheless, hey, it's always great to sit here and debate and talk football. And it's always fun because we're sitting here projecting 2 and 3 years into the future. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
when have we ever been on though? Write this shit down, folks.
That's right. Mark this shit down. Prophetic words from the intergalactic Buckeye fan himself. So any last thoughts before we get out of here, sir?
Hey, just if you'd like a little bit more of the Intergalactic Buckeye, come on over to choiceconversations.com and check out my personal development podcast, and can help you to improve your life in one choice at a time. So check it out, choiceconversations.com.
Yeah, and they can also hit you up on Twitter, I believe, at ChoiceConvo, if I'm not mistaken.
You got it.
There you go. The Intergalactic Buckeye fan, prophetic words of wisdom, always from the man who really, folks, can teach you a lot about life, love, relationships, and, of course, Ohio State football. And coming on with me and hanging out and having fun like we always do for the Buckeye Leafcast, sir, I do appreciate it. So this episode, once again, brought to you by Choice Conversations with the Intergalactic Buckeye fan, Mr. Chris Stefanick. Hit him up at Choice Convo on Twitter, or just visit choiceconversations.com. Also brought to you by Columbus Wired for your premier source of Central Ohio sports. Visit columbuswired.net. And it's also brought to you by Christie's Cleaning Services, LLC. It's not clean until it's Christie Clean. Visit her Facebook page at Christie's Cleaning Services, LLC. So let's leave them like we always do, sir. O-H.
I-O.
Go Buck!
I want to go back to Ohio State, to old Columbus town. I want to go back, I gotta go back to Ohio. Ohio, Ohio. The hills send back the cry. O-H, we're here to do or die. Ohio, Ohio. We'll win the game or know the reason why. And when we win the game, we'll buy a keg of booze. And we'll drink to old Ohio till we wobble in our shoes.